And what I'd like to do is say hello and welcome to our presentation on the environmental studies and field research programs at Holy Cross. These are just absolutely wonderful, wonderful programs, and I think that you're going to find that that you have such an awesome range of options to choose from, and I'm really happy to have with us tonight 3 student representatives from those programs to be able to share their experiences tonight. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. So you just give, I'll say your first name, and if you could just share your full name, your, again, your academic areas, the program that you went on, and the term that you went abroad. So let's start with Abby.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Like Chris said, my name is Abby Harris. I am a senior right now, crazy. And I went to, I'm a biology major, environmental studies minor. And I went to OTS South Africa in the fall of 2019.
Awesome. And how about Maddie?
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm also a senior. I'm a sociology major, education minor, just like Shatara. Congrats. It's a great department. Both of them are. And I went on the SFS Tanzania program in fall of my junior year, so fall of last year.
Awesome. And finally, Lauren. Lauren, are you on here?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry, I lost the mute.
Oh, good.
But I'm Lauren. I'm also a senior. I am a biology major and an environmental studies minor. And in the fall of 2019, I studied abroad at SFS, Turks and Caicos.
Awesome. So got a good this is a really well-rounded group that you have here. Some folks from both of the 2 organizations that we work with to provide these programs. And some really interesting locations. So what I want to do first is we're going to talk about the 2 sets of organizations in turn and talk through the different programs that they offer. We're going to start with the School for Field Studies, and to kind of get things rolling, to get us in the swing of things, I'm going to show a brief video to kind of give you a taste of what these programs are like. So with that in mind, technology willing, this is a short video on the School for Field Studies. Can you all hear that, by the way? Is that audio coming through too?
Often you come to a place not knowing really much about it. You know that it's warm, tropical climate. You know that you're going to go to the beach, have some fun, but you don't really know about the insider's perspective. And I really felt like this program provided a unique perspective.
This experience has given me a bigger worldview and has inspired me to learn about new places.
One of the many things that drew me to SFS was the idea of like field-based research. Stuff you learn in class can actually translate to what you find outside.
I feel like I've really grown as a scientist, being immersed in different ecosystems with different challenges.
It's a unique opportunity for students not only to get a wider perspective, but also to make a difference.
Our faculty are excellent leaders in the field. We are going to do everything we can to give you the tools and the skills that you need to succeed, because we know that you're capable and we know that you can do it. But you have to have that grit and determination to get through every aspect of the program, and we're there to help.
So if those images didn't make it already super clear, these programs give you an opportunity to participate in field research experiences in some of the most beautiful places on Earth. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about the destinations that we have approved for Holy Cross. So the School for Field Studies has programs all over the world, and there are certain of those programs that are sort of approved for Holy Cross students, where we vetted them and we feel that they meet our needs as far as, you know, the academic structure of the programs, and then also just sort of safety and security. And so what you have here before you are the list of programs that are available to Holy Cross students. And so these are a program in Australia called Tropical Rainforest Studies. There's a program in Bhutan called the Himalayan Environment and Society in Transition. In Costa Rica is the program on Sustainable Development Studies. We have a program in Panama that's Tropical Island Biodiversity Studies. Program in Peru that's Biodiversity and Development in the Andes and Amazon. A program called Wildlife Management Studies in Tanzania, where Maddie was a student. And then finally, Marine Resource Studies in Turks and Caicos, where Lauren attended. These programs, one of the advantages of them is that they follow an American sort of US academic calendar. So they go from late August to mid-December for the fall term, and then for the spring term, late January to early May. So again, they mirror that schedule exactly. One of the nice things about the School for Field Studies is that they historically have catered to folks in the hard sciences, but they really value having a sort of cross-disciplinary perspective on this. I mean, the main ethos of the program is this idea of sort of using the tools of research to be able to identify some of the most pressing environmental problems in each of these different locations, and find ways of sustainably addressing them, and in ways that not only sort of again promote healthy ecosystems, and sort of combat climate change and so forth, but also doing things in ways that are in line with the local communities that live there and that support their livelihoods and culture and perspectives. And so so with that in mind, that kind of breadth of a mission makes it to where, while it's certainly helpful to have like a strong cohort of students in biology on these programs, they increasingly are inviting students across the spectrum of they want folks in the social sciences. Maddie, I think, is a good case in point in that as a sociology major. Having folks that apply different lenses to address these very complex problems is exactly sort of the mission of the School for Field Studies. So they all of the SFS programs have as a prerequisite, they want you to at least have some foundation in ecology, biology, or environmental science. They're pretty flexible on that. So if you're concerned, we can talk about it, but they want you to have, again, one semester of college level, science in one of these areas prior to studying abroad. So between now and then the term that you would go abroad, if you don't already have that, then you would need to pick that up prior to going. So let's talk a bit about the course structure. So one of the nice things about SFS is they design things to where each center focuses on a different set of sort of environmental challenges and issues, sort of problems that guide the research that they do there. But in terms of the academic structure, the course structure, they've set things up to be the same across all of their programs, which is nice for planning purposes. So as you're, particularly for you folks who are, double majors in areas that maybe, I'm looking at, for example, like biology and history. What's nice is that it's always the same courses, and so you can plan in advance to know exactly what you're going to be getting yourself into. And so, so every one of these programs has a biology or / ecology course. Then there's a conservation management techniques course. There's a policy, ethics, or sort of social science oriented course. And then the last one is a directed research course. And then in some of the locations where a language other than English is spoken, you have this language and culture course, which is kind of like an overload half credit. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get along here. But as we're working our way through the slides, I've kind of color coded things to where, again, if you see, green is that bioecology course, purple is the conservation management techniques, and so forth. So you can kind of see the structure as we go forward. Awesome. So let's first talk about, and I'm going to move through these kind of quickly just to kind of give you an overview of these. One of the things that I'll show you at the end of this portion here is that, well, actually, as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and show you right now before I forget. So both the School for Field Studies and SFS, I'm sorry, both the School for Field Studies and OTS, Organization for Tropical Studies, have excellent websites where, what we're doing today is we're going into some depth, but as you are kind of figuring out the basic destinations that you're interested in, and you're starting to narrow it down to the, let's say your top 2 or 3, this is where the website becomes really helpful to be able to dig deep and really get a sense of what those things are. So I like everybody that's learning about these programs to know how to navigate the website. So beginning with SFS here, I just want to show you. So here's the, fieldstudies.org. I'll go ahead and pop this into the, let's see, the chat. Give me one sec here. Chat, so y'all can have access to this. Okay. The Field Studies website. So if we go on here to what I want to draw your attention to is menu. Can everyone see my screen reasonably well? Yeah. Okay. Great. So if we go to menu, down here to locations, right? So you have each of the locations. So let's say, Australia, since that's the one that we're on. So Australia, and then over here, it gives various options. What you're going to be interested in is the semester program. So for all of these, as you go through, make sure you're navigating to the semester program. So this shows you sort of the program dates, kind of an overview. Again, lots of really helpful images, talk through the major themes and so forth. What's nice on this too is that, if let's say that you go in here and you want to read more about any given course, you can click on that course and it brings up the, a general course description, but then also a syllabus that you can read. So you can really, really kind of get a sense of what you're going to be getting yourself into in terms of the academics. And then one of the things that I recommend that everybody acquaint themselves with is this resources tab right here, where you have under here a couple of documents, and the one that I think is most important is this field guide. So field guide for Australia semester. If you open this, this gives you, this is a treasure trove of information about the field studies programs, and so you can read through this, and it will outline absolutely everything you need to know about this program, sort of top to bottom. So again, just wanted to make sure that you were able to navigate to that page along those lines. Great. So let me then return to presentation. So the program in Australia is located in northeastern Australia. It is a fabulous program. We've had a number of students go on this program. Australia, as I'm sure you all know, has an incredibly diverse fauna. They're known worldwide for having just incredible biodiversity. But one of the interesting things about Australia is that in terms of the rainforest, rainforests actually account for a tiny percentage of the overall ecosystem that they have in Australia, and it's just in this one small pocket of the Northeast. And so there's just obviously really fascinating things going on there in the way of biodiversity. And this program gives you a chance to kind of experience, again, that rainforest ecology, but it also pairs it with trips to the Great Barrier Reef. And so as far as getting a range of things to experience, it's an excellent experience. So the biology course that they focuses on, rainforest ecology, and then the sort of conservation management techniques focuses on forest management. There's an environmental policy course, and then a directed research course. And as we're working our way through here, as you're kind of getting a sense of the programs that you might be, interested in, take a note of that. And then you and I can set up a meeting. You can send me an email. And I have alums that from just about all of these programs. And so if you're like, boy, I'd really love to talk to somebody who went on the Australia program, all you have to do is reach out to me and I can connect you with somebody who did that. So here's just a couple more images from that program. Awesome. So the program in Bhutan is relatively new when it comes to Holy Cross. We've just started to send students on this program over the last couple of years. I think we've so far now had 3 or 4 students go on these programs, or go on this particular program, and the feedback has been incredible. It is an unbelievable experience. One of the things about Bhutan is that it is notorious for being very difficult to visit as a tourist and very expensive. They have, like, under normal circumstances, a sort of really expensive sort of daily tourist pass, and you have to be with sort of a government appointed sort of chaperone the whole time. The School for Field Studies has negotiated with Bhutan to be able to host this program there, to where they're able to bypass a lot of those restrictions. And so you get this sort of unparalleled access to the country. And in the context of the sort of broader suite of programs, what sets Bhutan apart are a couple of things. So the first is that it's the one program that has, at least that's approved by for right now for Holy Cross students, that has a focus on sort of geoscience and focusing on sort of mountain ecology. You're up in the Himalayas, so it's just in terms of, if you're interested at all in mountain ecology, it is definitely the program for you. The conservation oriented course focuses on land use, natural resources, and conservation. And then again, there's a course on sort of a policy in connection to the environment. And then of course is the Director Research program. What's interesting about this one, so because religion is such an important dimension of life in Bhutan, this is the only SFS program where the sort of language and culture course has a kind of an express focus on religion. And so that's really interesting, and you learn a bit of the local language. Students have reported having a really positive experience, learning enough to be able to have at least sort of basic interactions with members of the local community while conducting interviews and so forth. So really fabulous program to consider. A program that we've had for a long time, and that is something of a flagship for School for Field Studies, is their program in Costa Rica, where they focus squarely on sustainable development. So if that's an area that you're interested in, Costa Rica is an awesome place to go. But also in terms of biodiversity, really a fascinating destination. So they focus on tropical ecology and sustainable development for the sort of biology ecology course, resource management, again, an ethics course, and then Director Research. As a program in a Spanish speaking country, there's a Spanish language and a Costa Rican culture course that accompanies that. And so and I should mention that for these programs, there is no prerequisite for language. So while it's certainly helpful, and we always recommend that folks try to the extent possible to take courses in that language prior to going, because it'll certainly enrich your experience, it's definitely not a requirement to have that as a prerequisite. So you can start from square one. And here are some gorgeous images from that program. The next program that I want to talk about is Tropical Island Biodiversity Studies in Panama. This is also a relatively new program when it comes to Holy Cross students. We've just started to send our first students on this program. And so naturally I was, eager to kind of hear how things were going, and maybe a little nervous. Had no need to be, because as it turns out, this was an awesome experience. The student who went to this in fall 2019 had just an extraordinary time there. And it gave, a lot of encouragement about, marketing this program for students and future cohorts, just because it really was a wonderful experience. So one of the things that's nice about this program, again, is you're trying to figure out which program's right for you. So this focuses on tropical coastal ecology. And so you'll see later, and Lauren will have a chance to talk in depth about Turks and Caicos. But this program Panama is nice because, let's say that you're interested in marine science, but you're a little bit reluctant or sort of nervous about the idea of spending, 6 days a week in the water as you do in Turks and Caicos, Panama gives you a nice blend of sort of land and sea. So it's focusing on, again, this coastal ecosystem. And so if you're looking for more of a balance in that sense, then I think Panama can be a great choice for you. And once again, as a program in a Spanish-speaking country, there is a language and culture course that accompanies this. The next and our last program in a Spanish-speaking country is a program called Biodiversity and Development in the Andes and Amazon in Peru. This is an awesome program. One of the things that sets it apart is that you spend your time in sort of across elevations. So it's set in Peru in the Amazon, but what you end up doing is a portion of your time is spent, in sort of the Amazon basin, but then also in sort of the highlands in the Andes Mountains. And so you get to see the sort of range of biodiversity across elevations. And so it's a fascinating program. Certainly not for the faint of heart. I mean, there's with mountains involved and sort of going from low to high, there's definitely a lot of hiking involved. But students have had a phenomenal experience on this program. And so this focuses on tropical ecology, but in that particular region. And again, the similar sort of conservation course, and a policy-oriented course, and a Spanish language and Peruvian culture course that accompanies it. And so here again, some gorgeous images from that experience. Awesome. And so we have now arrived at our program Wildlife Management Studies in Tanzania, where this is the one School for Field Studies program that's approved for students in Africa. We'll talk about the Organization for Tropical Studies that has a program in South Africa. As far as SFS is concerned, this is their program in Africa. And the focus is on wildlife ecology. So, for folks that are interested in sort of the big game, as it were, of Africa, this is definitely the program for you. So a focus on wildlife ecology, techniques in wildlife management specifically. And then there is, for the language and culture course, it focuses on Swahili language and then the East African tribal communities. And so what I want to do is, since we have a representative from that program, just to kind of give you a sense of what things are like from the student perspective. I wonder, Maddie, if you can talk to us a little bit about that experience. Things that I'm interested in are, the academic experience, the research experience, and then we'll for now we'll table the idea, because I want to dedicate a section about like sort of the living experience in housing. So if we could focus on just sort of academics and the field experiences, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I am a sociology major and education minor. So my biggest concern going abroad wasn't the fact that I was going to Eastern Africa or any type of foreign terrain like that. I was mostly concerned that I wasn't academically prepared for these type of courses. I had only taken environmental science for my science requirement at Holy Cross and hadn't taken any bio, any labs or anything like that because of my major. But the great part about SFS is they make it super accessible for non-bio environmental science majors, while also maintaining a very good challenge and deep dive into field studies. Like I know all my friends there that were environmental science or biology majors felt that they really got some great academic experiences there. So it's accessible while also remaining challenging. So mostly the academics, it's very front loaded. So the first month you spend getting settled in, you meet the villagers, your home village. It's super awesome. You get a good schedule going, and you're taking your classes mostly in the classroom with your professors. And then the second half, kind of the last month of the program, is spent on directed research, which is your in-depth research project of choice. And I loved learning Swahili. I still try to practice it as much as possible. And I'm actually applying for a Fulbright where I would use my Swahili. So Swahili, you might use it more than you think.
That's awesome. So one of the things that we'll Well, I'll save this. I'll save this for later on. I want to talk in greater depth about the research. So awesome. So we'll talk a little bit later about the context, because a big portion of these is the academic, experience. So you mentioned, just to press on this a little bit more. So in terms of the academics, how would you compare it to sort of learning and instruction at Holy Cross?
It's very outside. You don't feel confined to a classroom or to your computer a ton. A lot of the day trips are spent on one specific class, where you can go into the field. Even during the beginning, like I said, when we were spending more classroom time, we would drive an hour to a national park and we would collect data, and then we'd discuss it later in the classroom. So it's still very hands-on, and it's different than a traditional college education. It's not, you don't sit in a lecture hall all day. The field is your lab. So I think that was really cool to have that hands-on experience and be outside all the time, and really get to experience the unique environment.
Thank you. And here are some images from that program.
Seeing all the animals is super cool, and you get to camp exactly where the animals are, which is scary and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, a student Caroline was not on your program, or was she? Was she on
Yes,
your?
she was. Yep, that was the elephant video. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a video actually on our. I'll if I think of it, I'll post a. If you're familiar with our YouTube channel now, newly launched, we have that video posted there from that. It's called Close Encounters. It's this awesome video that Caroline Stanton from Maddie's cohort posted, where they're in the Jeep, and there's an elephant that's sort of right there and like kind of turns around in like half ominous way. really extraordinary video. Very, very cool. So all right, so the last program that we're going to talk about for the School for Field Studies is Marine Resource Studies in Turks and Caicos, where Lauren had a chance to attend. And so simply put, if you're interested in marine research, marine science, this is hands down the experience for you. You, again, as I mentioned earlier, you're spending 5-6 days a week in the field, which means in the water. So you definitely want to be comfortable in the water. You do your snorkeling. You for folks that are interested in it, you have the option to do scuba as well. They'll train you. Holy Cross will actually pay for a one of two out of 2 courses for scuba training. So for example, if you've never done scuba before, we'll pay for like the beginner course. If you've done scuba before and you've done a beginner course, we'll pay for like an intermediate or advanced course. So that's like an additional thing that we provide for that, to be able to let you participate and really dive in deep, literally. So again, this is the marine science program. So located in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Obviously, in terms of this is the bio course, focuses on tropical marine ecology, and then the rest of the courses build around that. Really, Lauren, I just want to give you a chance to talk about your experience there.
Yeah, so a lot of what I will say will echo a lot of what Maddie was saying with Tanzania, especially with the hands-on. For example, in our tropical marine ecology class, our quizzes were identification quizzes, and we took them in the ocean. So we would go out on a boat to a reef, and you would swim up to your professor and they'd point to a coral and you'd identify what coral it was. So it was super hands-on, and it was really cool to not just learn about a coral that I had to identify, but seeing the coral in real life. So it's really great experience to bring the classroom to the real world. Something that's also really big, that was a big part of my time when I was in Turks and Caicos, was the community outreach aspect of our program. So it's a very structured program. Every day you have a set schedule that you follow. But on Wednesdays and Saturdays, in the morning, we would do some sort of water-based activity. We'd either go on a dive or a snorkel. And then in the afternoon, we would do some sort of community outreach. So on Wednesdays, I would always go to a 3rd grade classroom at a local school and do arts and crafts with the kids. And then on Saturdays, some of the kids that lived on the island would come to the center where we lived, and they would take swim lessons, and we do arts and crafts with them and just like hang out with them for the day. So that was something that I really enjoyed, because as a Holy Cross student, I was really involved with like outreach activities at Holy Cross. And so it really gave me the chance to continue it at in Turks and Caicos. And I did a really cool research project on fish abundance. Never in my life would I think I'd be so knowledgeable on fishery management, but I definitely am. So I will say I also just met some really amazing people from all over, from Holy Cross and from all over the country. Tonight at 9, I'm actually having a Zoom with some of my friends from abroad. So
yeah,
really build that community.
Awesome. So you touched on a couple things that I think are really wonderful to highlight. And so I had alluded to this earlier, but this idea of sort of not only, you know, doing research that is meaningful in the context of the local communities that these, you know, the research groups are working in, but also really making an effort to just ensure that their presence there is a, you know, a source of sort of mutual benefit to, the center and then the communities that are around there. So there really is an effort to build reciprocity into the work that they do there, to be sort of, members, but, the good sort of working members of the community, integrating themselves. And so, yeah, I think that's an excellent, it's definitely hardwired into the ethos of I would say both School for Field Studies and OTS is this idea of being, good members of the community. One of the other things that I wanted to mention as well was Lauren, you mentioned this idea of the bonds you build through these experiences. If it's not already clear, this is not a traditional study abroad experience by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're listening to this presentation, you again by now will probably have gathered that. But as a result, the camaraderie that develops with your cohort, the bonds that you build because you guys are in the trenches together experiencing this very unique and in some cases very demanding, both physically and intellectually experience. These are relationships that are built to last a lifetime. I mean, it's pretty much standard issue that folks that go on these programs will, like in the immediate next semester, make plans to go and sort of visit their friends at, the University of Chicago and this and that. And so, this is a bit of a sidebar, but I think it's worth mentioning. I'll give you a chance, just to kind of break things up. I'll give all three of you a chance to kind of talk about that. Maybe Abby, would you want to share? Did that bear out in your experience?
Oops, sorry. With online stuff, someone just walked in. I was like, oh, hang on.
No.
About building relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's only one other kid that from Holy Cross that went to South Africa with me. Which I know a lot of other abroad programs, which is, another different but also great aspect is that in a lot of European programs, there are multiple Holy Cross students going. So you go in knowing a lot of people, which, has a lot of pros and cons. But I think something different about these programs is that it's kind of a smaller group. So you're going in with less Holy Cross students. So you get, a bigger opportunity to become much closer with more people from all over the country, all over the world. I have close friends now that are actually from South Africa that I keep in touch with. So it's just a really amazing thing that you get really close with these people very quickly because you are in this close-knit group for a long time.
Awesome. Maddie, how about you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think by the time junior year of college came around, I was really excited to be able to experience to meet kids from other colleges and see what their experiences had been like. So that was super fun. And yeah, you get super close. I mean, the nature of the programs is so unique, and it's full of really, really good experiences that happen outside of your comfort zone. And so people naturally come together when you're all being forced outside of your comfort zone together. So you build bonds through working through that together.
Awesome. Yeah. And so that's it's a really good point that you made too, Abby, about this idea of being sort of potentially apprehensive about the idea of being these programs, the nature of these programs is that they're kind of a niche group of students who are interested in them, right? Because they're for folks with a very specific set of interests, right? And so these are not programs that have tons and tons of students going on them, but that though it can seem intimidating, I think it's every bit an advantage because it gives you a chance to integrate yourselves more into a broader community, expand your sort of your network, you know, both nationally and globally. And again, that time and again, that is like sort of trumpeted as like a serious value added for these programs. So definitely something to take advantage of. Very cool. In the interest of time, we're going to keep on moving. Here's some lovely images of that program, the Turks and Caicos program. And with that, we're going to transition now to OTS, the Organization for Tropical Studies. And they are currently operating one program that is approved for Holy Cross students. But don't let just the one program be the lack of tons of programs be of any concern to you, because this program that they offer there is it doesn't get much better than this. And so I want to show a short video on this to give you sort of a brief visual experience of this. So again, just an incredible context for study abroad. And here, so the Organization for Tropical Studies is such a fabulous program. They've been operating this program for a very, very long time. And so, you know, similar to the School for Field Studies, these are, it's really important to mention that these are places where the research that's being conducted here, the centers that they're operating here, these are not places that have only been here for like a year or two. These are places that have been active research centers, in many cases going back decades. And so the research that you're going to be contributing to is incredibly meaningful, and the data sets that folks have to work on, you know, there are longitudinal research projects that go back, again, many years. So these are sort of fixed, really important, sort of, you know, again, have a very strong connection to the local communities. And so the program that we're going to be talking about is the program called African Ecology and Conservation. And much like SFS, it operates on an academic or U.S. academic calendar. So the programs run from late August to mid-December in the fall, and then mid to late January to early May in the spring. And the structure of these programs in terms of the courses that you take is similar to SFS in that you've got a sort of a biology or ecology oriented program called South African Ecosystems and Diversity, a course in sort of conservation techniques called Conservation and Management of Protected Areas in South Africa, for in place of the sort of the ethics and social science course, they have a course called South Africa Special Topics in History that you take there. And then as far as directed research, their answer to that is the field research in savanna ecology course that they offer. So again, it has the very, very same sort of idea there of conducting extended field research. And so so what's important to what sets sort of South Africa apart are a couple of things. So first, if you are a student of biology and you are looking for a rigorous biology experience, one that, like, let's say you've got your sights set on grad school and you really just want to get the sort of the richest biology experience you can, hands down, this is the question, or this is the program that you should be considering. They have their sort of roots in biology as kind of the sort of key core discipline. They have begun to invite students from other disciplines, so I'm sure Abby would be able to chime in and say that there were folks outside of biology on her program when she was there, but they definitely continue to be geared towards biology students in the main sort of design of the program. And with that in mind, unlike SFS, which has a 1 semester requirement in terms of prerequisites for college level bio, for OTS, you need 2 semesters, so one full year of college level biology to be able to participate in this program, because they really want you to be able to hit the ground running. And this program also is for folks who are interested in sort of the big game in Africa, and you have access to like, just again, unprecedented access to Kruger National Park as one of the locations, which is just world renowned. What's cool about this program as well is that it takes place in different parts of South Africa at different times during the program. So you begin in a certain location as a base, and then you work your way up north, where you stay with a host family. At one point, you end up going to the coast, so that's where you were seeing some of the images of in the water. So you get kind of a really nice perspective on the country as a whole, but focusing again on these really rich, interesting ecosystems. And so yeah, Abby, I'd love to give you a chance to talk about your experience.
Yeah, so I mean, the video shows so much. I remember looking at it and being like, I did that, I was there, and it was fun to see that video. But I think he mentioned the host family, and I think that was one of still one of the strongest takeaways I have. So like I said before, I am a biology major. I love the research, I love the labs, also with a huge environmental interest. So doing all these research projects is amazing, but it's also experiences like staying with a host family, staying in a village where they all speak a different language, you being the outsider, is really a crazy feeling that I feel like if you are in that kind of experience, you remember that kind of for the rest of your life. But also having this major access to Kruger National Park was absolutely amazing. We were living in this national park that's like majority of where we stayed. And so you're waking up and you see animals every day, all day. Like, it's weird if you don't see an elephant like at lunchtime, because you're eating outside and you look over outside, your little electric fence, and there's, elephants walking by. At night you hear hyenas. It's a crazy experience. It really is. There's nothing like it.
So awesome. And how did you find the experience in terms of compared to your learning and instruction at Holy Cross?
Definitely so different. As every other student said, it's such a hands-on kind of a broad experience that you really can't compare. I know at Holy Cross I take labs all the time, and so like learning in the labs is great. You learn so much more and you can relate it back to your class, but having your class also be outside and then going outside and seeing everything right there with you it's just so different. You really can't even like try to compare it. It's just such a different kind of like hands-on experience and feel, because you're experiencing a new culture, new people, new languages, new animals. Everything is new, and it's just exciting every day.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you, Abby. So what I want to do is I'm mindful of the time, so I'm going to move on to the next bit. I'm getting to a place where we're going to kind of open things up to be able to have a little bit more sort of conversation with the attendees here. So, so we've talked about a lot of this, so just kind of like, you know, reflecting back, kind of putting this all together. So the main reason to consider these programs is if you are listening to this and you're saying to yourself, boy, I would love to get hands-on field-based learning in some of the most, you know, fascinating and beautiful ecosystems on Earth, then you've arrived at the right place. From there, it's just a question of finding, you know, of fine-tuning and figuring out exactly what ecosystems you're interested in, what sorts of questions you want to be asking in the way of the research. Because again, what makes these such wonderful programs is that they, you know, obviously tailor the research they're doing to the local ecosystem. So that will obviously be a part of what's driving you. Maybe you're naturally drawn to, you know, to sort of the wildlife piece. Maybe you're naturally drawn to more sort of the marine piece, et cetera. So that can be a portion of things, but then also just the kinds of questions that they're asking. So I really urge you to go, as I said, to the websites for both of these programs and to look deeply into the kinds of research that they're doing, to get a sense of kind of, you know, again, the questions you're going to be addressing there, because that's what a huge part of what's make these such valuable experiences is, as I mentioned, these are programs of research that date back in some cases decades. And so you're not just like, you know, this isn't just doing it for exercise. The work that you're contributing to is contributing to a broader project that, you know, again, has, you know, a lot of these projects end up culminating in papers that are co-published, or, you know, or co-written and published with faculty on these programs. In many, many cases, students have maintained their connections to the faculty at the research centers at SFS and OTS, and have either remotely conducted research with them and published papers with them, or I'm aware of folks that have actually gone back to the center and done sort of independent research, stayed connected through grad school, been able to leverage those connections to be able to sort of, you know, plug them into good grad school environments where they can continue that work that they've been doing. And then again, one of the things I think is so awesome about these programs is that the work that you do contributes in meaningful ways to what's going on in the local communities, to the tune of, you know, in many of these programs, you end up at the end of the semester, after you've done all this hard work and put together, you know, your research and you have your preliminary findings, you end up doing sort of formal presentations in many cases to members of the local community. And so it really just comes around full circle. And a lot of times, you know, the local communities will end up taking up the implications of that research to make sort of, you know, changes to adopt more sustainable practices. And so it's rare to find a situation where you have, you know, research having such a visible and immediate impact on local practices. And so is that something that you all experienced in terms of, did you all do presentations to the local community? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can start. So in Turks and Caicos, which is located too in the British West Indies and the Caribbean, which I feel like a lot of people don't always know where it is. It's like right below the Bahamas. But I was on South Caicos, which is the smallest island of all the islands. There's only around 2,000 people that live on the island in total, so it's a very tight-knit community. So they know the kids from the School for Field Studies. They call us School for Fields. So like you'll be walking down the street and you'll hear School for Fields, and it's like the little kids saying hi to the School for Field Studies students. So they're very aware of the research that we're doing. And my research in particular, I did do part of my study. I looked back to data that SFS had from 2004 to the present time. So it was data that we collected that had been collected by people over the years. But we did an initial proposal to the community. So before we started our research, we presented to them. And then once we completed our research, we presented to the community. So the community was very involved in our research, which was really important, especially with me and I was doing fishing, and the fishermen can be a little nervous that we're gonna like hand over all of our documents to like the government of Turks and Caicos and they're gonna get in trouble for their fishing practices. But it's more to help the community. It's more to, it's only going to like, we're not in cahoots with the Turks and Caicos government to get all the fishermen. We're really just doing research, and the community knows that we're just doing research. So they're really involved actually with our research. I worked with fishermen, so I would hang out with them at the docks every day during my directed research. So they knew what was going on. They laughed with us as we touched fish, and yeah, it's a good time.
Awesome. And how about you two? Abby and Maddie, did you all do presentations to the local communities? Right?
Yes. At the end of ours, so my final research project was in Kruger National Park. And at the end, like scientists, different that are living in the park, people that like run the park, like different park rangers, they all come in and like are so supportive, and they ask questions, and they like talk about their research. They like think how they could like continue their research on what you did, how they could continue that in the park. So it's kind of like just an amazing experience to be like, oh, like I actually did something that kind of makes a difference, you know? Where sometimes at Holy Cross it's like, oh, like I'm making this little test tube thing, and they're like, okay, that's whatever. But in these programs you're like, wow, like I did something that's like really important. So it's very cool.
Yeah, very similar. I actually had the chance to do sociological research, and we were interviewing local communities' perceptions of reptile species that were indigenous to the environment. So I got to interview a ton of Tanzanians, which was super cool because that was like my favorite thing, just getting to know them and getting to meet local people and what their lives were like. So that was cool. And we presented to the community at the end.
Very, very cool. So just a couple more slides before we open things up to questions. Just brief review of academics. So as I mentioned, if you attended the general info session, you can, in principle, and the expectation is that through working with me and then with the major and minor advisors and the registrar, that all of the courses that you take abroad will apply towards your major, and you'll be able to sort of make seamless progress towards your degrees. So again, as we pointed out, the syllabi are on the program websites. When it comes to getting courses approved towards your major, your minor, your concentration, that approval comes from your major, minor, and concentration advisors. And so it's good to meet with them and to talk to them about these programs, to sort of see how that will fit into your course plan. And then when it comes to common area requirements, let's say you were interested in requesting approval for let's say the social policy or ethics course to apply towards a social science or something along those lines, that approval would come from the Office of the Registrar, and specifically Kelly O'Brien is the representative of that office that works on that. And so we mentioned again a lot of this already, so I'm not going to go into this in greater detail. You've got these, again, the core disciplinary courses that all are designed to sort of culminate in the research. And so I want to give each of you a chance to talk a little bit about the research, because I do think that's kind of a big part of the draw to these programs, is this idea of, in the end, you not only have this training in research, but it culminates in this product at the end, a substantive sort of research paper that you've produced. And so if you can each talk a little bit about how that experience evolved, sort of how you ended up doing the topic, what your topic was, how you ended up doing it, and then what the overall experience was like. So let's maybe start. Maddie, do you want to start first?
Yeah, so the way Tanzania was, they gave you multiple options of ongoing research projects, kind of like what Lauren said, like you could work with past students' data if a professor was interested in continuing that. And so this was actually the first time, my project was the first time that the professor had chosen to do it. So they kind of design the question, but they let you run with it. So it's structured in the sense of you don't have to come up with a month-long research project out of your mind. You could theoretically do that, but they give you lots of options and they let you run with it. And I think it was really good practice, because I'm currently doing an honors thesis project for the sociology department. So I'm doing a senior thesis, and that requires a lot of interviewing and data collection. So even though it was an environmental studies program, I still got sociology experience.
Can you very briefly describe what your project was?
Yeah, so there was a lot of the herpetological, which is just a fancy word for reptiles, species in a lot of the rural areas of Tanzania are going extinct or are endangered. And so the reason because of that is many of the local people will see a reptile and immediately kill it for different reasons. Snakes they kill because they assume it's poisonous. A turtle they will often kill for food because they're tasty. So we were just interviewing and seeing, we would show them pictures of different reptiles that were local to the area that we were interviewing in and ask them, oh, if you saw this, or how often do you see this? And if you do see it, what do you do when you see it? So we were just gathering local perceptions of these species to see, kind of gauge why some are endangered, why some aren't, and kind of the cultural and social norms surrounding it.
Awesome. Thank you. And how about you, Lauren?
So I briefly mentioned my project was on fish abundance on South Caicos. So the way it worked was very similar, where the professors kind of proposed to all the students a whole bunch of different potential projects that we could be a part of. And we got split up into groups based on which projects we were interested in. So we wrote down which ones we liked. And I happened to be working with 3 other students, and one of them is another student from Holy Cross, Jill Spurk. So it was us and then 2 other girls, and we did 2 different types of data collection. So we would collect data underwater, putting down some baited cameras. We would put, we had some other roving diver data where we would swim 100 meters and count what fish we saw. And then we would also had our land research where we collected the weights and lengths of fish that the fishermen were catching. And then we did a whole bunch of statistical analysis, and we, which I had learned during class. In the beginning, we learned how to use R, and I was like, oh, this is hard, I'll never use it again. And then we had to use it for our research. So it really was very continuous. What I learned in the classes, I was using on my research project. And then we wrote a paper and made a presentation and made a video. So we learned the whole process from starting with, we were just given the methods and we had to determine our questions. So we knew what we were going to be doing. We just had to come up with a question based on it. So it was the whole process, coming up with the idea, doing the collection, doing the analysis, and summarizing it. So.
And Lauren and Jill had a fabulous presentation in the study abroad panel in the academic conference this past year. And so, yeah, a little shout out there. Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. And Abby, if you could tell us, get a little bit about the process for you.
Yes. So in South Africa, throughout, my semester there, we actually did a few research projects. Some of them were ones that were ongoing, that they've already had years of research. So we were just adding to it to hopefully someday, publish it, because that takes so much data. But then at the end, we kind of did our big research, our capstone project. In that case, the students were actually able to, we spent an hour or 2 coming up with as many questions as we could, what could we do, all of us, and the professors were okay, they'd write it down, they took whatever. And then we just spent another hour kind of brainstorming which ones really made sense, which ones could lead to some big, amazing questions that we could answer. And then we kind of split up from there, who wants what. We had this really big question list, narrowed it down again. So it was awesome to have it started all from us. And then these professors were obviously so excited to see all our ideas, and they would kind of guide us in how we could start it. But then once we got it, we were just going. They were there to edit our papers, but we were doing everything. And so my big kind of capstone project was about light pollution and bat ecology in a national park, which is really interesting because, as we all know, the human population is increasing exponentially. So light pollution is something we don't really think about, but we're producing all this light at night, where all these animals have been so used to, when it's dark, and that affects their hunting, their behaviors. So it's nice to see this human impact and how it even affects a national park, which is something you think that, oh, humans don't affect that, but there is still a major effect. So it was very, very cool, very important, very shocking, but yes, very exciting.
How cool do these research projects sound? Those of you that are, this is just extraordinary stuff. Every time I run these these presentations and I get a chance to hear back from you all about the things that you're doing, it's just, it's truly amazing that you all are doing this and that you're doing this as, you know, as undergraduates. I mean, you're just setting yourselves up for a lifetime of success in these areas. And so I'm proud. I'm sure that's so cool. I want to give you all a chance to save this for the end. One of the things, obviously, we mentioned this isn't a traditional program, right? So, you know, so it's important for you all to know what you're getting yourself into, right? So these programs for the right people are the stuff that you know, sort of, you know, the once in a lifetime, just truly extraordinary experiences. But for the, you know, for the wrong people, they can be pretty miserable, right? Because again, you have to be comfortable getting your hands dirty, sort of, you know, figuratively, but also literally. I mean, in all of these programs, you are out in the field, in some cases all day long. It can be, again, physically demanding, emotionally demanding to spend that kind of time. Your days are very structured. I mean, you do get like, and usually you get like Sundays, you know, off to be able to kind of, you know, unwind a bit. They're not like the university programs where, you know, you can sort of do independent travel on the weekends. They both, as we'll talk about in a little bit, they both have kind of a midterm break, or they all have like a midterm break, where you do get to kind of, you know, usually as a group, you end up like, you know, deciding where you want to go. But yeah, so there are definitely, it's a very particular kind of experience. And so I really like folks to be, I personally like to be as transparent as possible about what that is, and make sure that that's something that every student that signs up to go on one of these programs knows kind of what they're getting into. Along those lines too, the housing, that's something that I wanted you all to have a chance to talk about. You must go anticipating sort of less privacy, group living. In a majority of these situations, you're living in what are called bunk rooms, where you've got, you know, 4, sometimes 6 people living in it. You occasionally have restricted resources. Lauren, we can talk about, you know, freshwater showers versus, you know, was it like once a week or something like that? Or it's
Yeah, it sounds worse than it is. It's like we had access to showers whenever we wanted, but they were saltwater showers. And then once a week you could take a freshwater shower, but we made it like a thing to not use the freshwater showers. Like it was like a point of pride. If you, like Jill Spurk, she didn't take a single freshwater shower the entire time we were there. She was like, took pride in her saltwater shower. So we were clean, just like not freshwater clean.
So when you see Jill around, you know, be sure to mention, we know your secret. Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure she's proud.
That's perfect. And so yeah, so just, you know, it's a very, you know, I don't know how accurate this is, but I often liken it to like, you know, summer camp, like on steroids, where it's like you know, that is the kind of like the vibe you need to be sort of getting yourself into, because, you know, it's a full semester of that. And so can you the three of you chat a bit about your experience? Maybe Abby, we'll start with you. Just sort of daily life.
Yeah, so I would say majority, like the kind of the chunk of the program, you are in Kruger National Park. And so once we are kind of in the swing of things and like you're in the middle of a research project, kind of like a typical day would be like you're waking up early, like 6 a.m. We're having breakfast. We're all getting in the game drive vehicles. We're going on a game drive, start the morning, see some animals. One morning we saw like lions and hyenas fighting over a buffalo. I was like, this is the Lion King right here. Like, this is the real action movie. And then you'd come back at 7:30, you know, have another breakfast. And then you would have some classes, have like a history class, kind of have an ecology class. And you would kind of have a break, you know, lunchtime. Probably the monkeys are coming in by now to steal your food. And then you'd have some time to work on your research project with your group. And then around like 4 o'clock, I just remember like the typical times now. Now like 4 o'clock is when the kids that were living in this national park in their little village would get out of school. So we would meet them at the soccer fields. We'd go play with them for an hour, you know, run around. Sometimes you'd see like a warthog over on the field. Then we get back in our game drive vehicles and we'd head back to our little like camp area. So I was kind of living And like Chris said, like it's kind of like a bunk room. I was in a bunk bed with 6 other girls majority of the time. But that was like a typical day.
Perfect. Lauren, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I can jump on because it looks like Maddie had to leave, but she gave me an email, so.
Okay, perfect. Got it.
Yeah, summer camp is exactly what it was. We called it summer camp. We flat out said it was summer camp. It feels like summer camp. It really does. So a typical day for us, our schedule was very structured. So for like the first part of the semester, before we did directed research, and then our research kind of took over our schedules, on like Monday, Wednesdays, or Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we would wake up at like 6 a.m., 6:30. Breakfast was at 7, but if you wanted to like exercise before it got too hot, you had to do that before the sun rose, basically. So if you wanted to wake up to exercise, you were waking up at like 5, which wasn't me. So I would wake up at 7 and go to breakfast. And there was like a bell we rang for all of our meals. And then we always had morning meeting where we would play a game with everybody, all the students and the staff members. And then we would usually go to class. And we had a 10 o'clock snack, which was the worst of the 2 snacks. 4 o'clock snack was superior because it was always like something sweet. But we would go in and out of our different classes. Sometimes we do a field exercise, or what we would call a FEX, where we would go out, and so we did a big FEX counting conch shells that we would see in the water. So we would usually have some sort of FEX once a week. And then we would eat all of our meals together, buffet style. You'd go through the line and you'd sit with your, with everybody and eat dinner. And then on, like I mentioned, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, our schedule looked a little different. It looked like doing some sort of waterfront and then doing some sort of community outreach. So it was structured, but there was still a little bit of free time where we could walk to the store, like walk to Johnny's and get like ice cream, or go to Regatta, which is a beach. So there was free time, but there wasn't a lot of alone time. It was definitely a lot of living in a group.
It's for these programs that the director of study abroad, Professor Smith, says unironically, if you want privacy, bring a tent, is what he says about these programs. And again, I say it in this way to not to scare you, or maybe a little bit to scare you, but just to make sure that you know full well kind of what you're getting into. Because what the worst thing that could happen is you misrepresent the experience. You show all the pretty pictures, but not like give you a clear sense of of the living situation, and then you get you don't have a good experience. To be clear, the feedback that I've gotten from students is that the accommodations are totally livable. You have everything that you need to be to be reasonably comfortable. But you just don't go expecting 4-star hotel accommodation, and I think you'll be just fine. Anything else you guys wanted to chime in on that front?
I guess I know I think a good majority of the SFS programs, there's not great access to Wi-Fi and phone service. So I never really had a big problem. Like, we were able to do our work on, our readings were all online. We were able to use the Wi-Fi, but you just couldn't FaceTime. So if you wanted to talk to your family or friends, you could call them on FaceTime audio, but you couldn't FaceTime video. So that was something else that was I was a little bit nervous for, but it ended up being completely fine. And we didn't really have enough time to be on our phones anyways, that it didn't really cause a problem. But that's also just something to keep in mind, that you are in a little bit of a more remote location. So you might not have access to all of the normal amenities that you have in the US, which
absolutely
you'll see that there's certain things that you don't think about that we have in the US that aren't in some other places.
Great point. Awesome. So I'm seeing the time here, so I'm just going to move quickly so we can get to just an open Q&A. Just briefly, eligibility, mentioned this already, that in terms of prerequisites for SFS, it's one college level course in bio, ecology, or sort of, environmental science. And then for OTS, it's 2 college level courses. They're pretty flexible on this, so talk to me, we'll figure it out. The suggested GPA is 3.0, but as I mentioned in the general info session, if you are concerned about GPA, just talk to me. Shouldn't let GPA prevent you from submitting an application. Often there are ways of working around that. So just again, that's the suggested. But let us ultimately decide whether you're eligible or not based on GPA. No deficiencies. So just to reiterate, if you have a W on your transcript, you withdrew from a course, you have to make that up prior to studying abroad, the term you go abroad, either through a 5th course or a summer course. And you have to have declared a major before the term that you study abroad. So if you're undeclared at the time of submitting your application, that's okay. But prior to actually, going abroad, you have to have declared a major. The application is really straightforward. It's at sa.holycross.edu. The most substantial thing you have to contribute as part of that is a personal statement, 2 to 3 pages, where you just tell me, I'm going to be the one you're submitting this to, what program you're interested in and why, basically, and then focusing primarily on sort of, what your, what academic and professional and maybe personal goals that you see this program helping you to fulfill. Again, it's not like applying for college again, so don't freak out if it's not already abundantly clear. I really think these are wonderful programs and that anybody that should participate on them. So I'm on your team. 2 letters of recommendation are required for each of these. So make sure that you reach out to your faculty members in advance of entering their names into the online application system, because the second that you do that, that will generate an email to them, and that can be embarrassing to have them receive the request from a robot rather than you via email. So definitely make sure to do that. And then if the system asks for it, an unofficial transcript, you can just download it from STAR and then upload it. Passport, just to reiterate, if you do not have a valid passport, and by valid it means you need to make sure that it does not expire before January 2023. So take a look at your passports. You want to do this sooner than later because of processing times. There are sort of delays right now owing to COVID-19. So definitely want to make sure to check out your passport and reapply if you need to. In terms of finances, again, it's designed to be where all the main expenses are cost neutral. So you'll pay Holy Cross room, board, and tuition, and you'll be billed by Holy Cross in exactly the same way. You'll be responsible for your passport fees and any visa fees. The visa requirements vary by country, and some have visa requirements, some don't. SFS and OTS will walk you through the details of what that looks like, so you'll have plenty of an idea of what that looks like. The fees are not abundantly expensive for any of these, but just to be transparent about the things that you can expect to pay. Flights, you're responsible for, again, purchasing your own flights up front, but then you'll receive a travel credit on your billing account that will be, again, equivalent to the amount of an average round trip ticket from Boston to wherever your program destination is. So again, consider it sort of like a discount on your tuition for that semester and the amount of a round trip ticket. And an important note here is that, one of the sort of unintended benefits of not having tons of free time and being in more remote places is that there's not the same, it's not as easy to spend money as it is in some of our other places. So you can end up going and not spending a whole lot of money because, as I said, yeah, it's kind of tough to in certain places. So obviously, but you still want to have a little bit of spending money on hand for gifts and things here and there. The one significant thing that you need to be aware of is that if your program includes a midterm break, this is true for some, I would say a majority, you're responsible for finding and paying for your own housing during that period of time. In most of the locations, it tends to be pretty affordable. But again, you and I can talk about it and we can, look at some example budgets and so forth. Let's see. And then as far as visas are concerned, definitely, just take a look at the program websites and they outline in sort of painstaking detail what the expectations are sort of country by country for that, and how, what the steps are for taking care of that. And if you're not a U.S. citizen, you want to make sure to, again, be looking into the visa requirements for citizens of that particular country. So awesome.